Hey everyone, it's obviously Diablo 3's launch night tonight, and we're taking time out to talk to some ARPG developers. And with us here this evening is Arthur Bruno, who's from Create Entertainment, who's working on the upcoming ARPG Grim Dawn. Hi Arthur, how you doing?
I'm doing great. It's good to be talking to you, Paul.
Okay, fantastic. Obviously, this is quite a big night for ARPG gamers who've been waiting for Diablo 3 for I don't know how many years now. Just the game seems to have been in development forever. And I wanted to ask you about your influences and how's Diablo and the Diablo series in itself influenced your game development and the things that you've worked on in the past. Obviously, you've worked on Titan Quest previously, Iron Lore. So how is this? How has it shaped the way that you approach game development?
It's certainly had a tremendous influence. I've been a fan of the genre, since its inception. I played a ton of Diablo 1. I remember back in, God, I would think it was towards the end of high school, beginning of college for me, and I used to hang out at my cousin's house in the summer, and we just played endless hours of Diablo 1 in their basement. And then, when Diablo 2 came out, as much as I loved Diablo 1 at the time, I was more into online game, massively multiplayer games, and I don't know, I looked at the original, 640 by 480 2D graphics, and I thought, geez, I don't know if I'm going to get it. And I held off for a while, and it was about that time that I started working at Iron Lore that we were working on an action RPG, and I started having to play other action RPGs for research. And I went back and I got Diablo in the expansion, and I started playing it, and I think I probably have played well over 300 hours of it. I just couldn't stop playing. And it's one of those games where initially, it's really like a case study for designers, because you get into the game, and when you first start playing, immediately there are certain things that jump out as, why did they do that? Or I don't think that makes sense. They almost seem like there are some problems. But once you play it enough, as you really get into it, you realize that a lot of those things actually enhance the long-term playability of the game, and that in a way they're actually quite genius. And so it was very instructive for me, not just as an action RPG designer, but as a designer in general, to really consider the long-term impact of seeing some of those decisions play out over, tens to hundreds of hours of gameplay, and to see that, like one of the things that I think is the greatest about, that they do in Diablo 2, and I don't know if they did this on purpose or not, I think that they did, and I think it's quite genius, is that there are a lot of opportunities for you to sort of figure out more effective ways to play the game than sometimes even seem like they're intended. Like I remember, playing, especially, a sorceress was my favorite character, because so many of those skills are kind of feel semi-exploitable, and you figure something out and you think to yourself, aha, I've done it. I've figured out how to overcome the game, and you laugh at in your triumph at how powerful you are. But eventually you realize it's really not an imbalance, it's not an exploit, because it all kind of balances out in the end, and it doesn't diminish the fun of the game.
So,
But just that,
do you think it kind of makes you think outside the box?
I think it does. I think it makes you feel like you have the opportunity to create something that's unique for yourself. I think that to some extent, we're all, even if we're playing single player, we're all sort of, in our heads, we're playing against the other guy. And we're trying to do something that is above and beyond what we think the average person has accomplished in the game. And I think that the way that Diablo 2, the skill systems and the equipment and everything are designed, it creates all of these opportunities for you to figure out these unique and extraordinary builds that really make you feel satisfied with yourself, make you feel like you've figured something out about the game.
Do you actually get a chance to play in the Diablo 3 beta when it was actually up and running?
Yeah, I actually got an early invite into the beta, I think back around September, and played through it with all of the character classes.
And what did you think of that? What was your first impression when you actually stepped into it for the first time?
Um, I mean, my first impression was that the mood and the atmosphere of the game are amazing, and it's something certainly to be inspired by. But at the same time, I have to say, as a truly hardcore Diablo 2 player, I mean, I finished the game with dozens of characters. I even went so far as to finish it in hardcore mode in hell with a couple characters. And playing Diablo 3, I don't know. I mean, I think as a traditional player, I was a little disappointed by, the fact that you level up and there really isn't a lot of decision making. You get a skill.
Yeah.
And it seemed like it took away a lot of the experimentation, but also just, I think, the gatedness of it. And I can understand where they're going. I mean, there's the storytelling is really fantastic in the game, but at the same time, one of the things that I think for me made Diablo 2 so replayable is that when you're on your second or third or 50th play through the game, you can just run through town and ignore all of the NPCs trying to talk to you and set right out into the Bloodmoor and start hacking and slashing and getting into that frenzied loot collection.
Do you think then that they obviously the skill system has changed quite a lot, and they changed the skill interface quite late on in the beta? I mean, do you think they've got that right? I mean, do you think it's dumbed down? I mean, what's your opinion on it?
I mean, I guess it's hard to say. I mean, with a lot of Blizzard things, I think you have to kind of see how they play out over time before you can really pass judgment on them. But I think as a real fan of the pre-existing games, I don't know. I think if Diablo 3 was a totally new franchise and I was playing it for the first time, I would think it was amazing. As a longtime fan of the previous two games, I feel a little unsure about the change. I'm not sure that I like it, but I'm willing to wait to see how it plays out.
So what you're saying is that basically if you didn't know any better, then it's fantastic, but maybe some of the more hardcore players that have come from the first two series, they might just find the change just a little bit too different. I mean, there's been a lot of discussion and debate about this, don't get me wrong.
Yeah. No, I mean, I guess what I'm trying to say is that I think it's a great game. It's a great action RPG. I think it may have even wider appeal to people outside of the Diablo franchise than the previous two did. But as a hardcore fan of that franchise, I guess it's not what I necessarily would wish that Diablo 3 would have been.
Well, now that we've discussed about some of the game mechanics, moving on to your current project, which obviously is the upcoming ARPG Grim Dawn, which you've just completed a Kickstarter, so congratulations on that, first of all, for reaching your Kickstarter goal. Very well done. After seeing what's happened with the Diablo 3 development, are there things that you saw in the development process with Diablo 3 that has maybe influenced your design decisions moving forward now with Grim Dawn?
Not really. I mean, I think that anytime you look at another game in the genre, you can see little things that they've done better than you. Sort of solutions to little problems that seem to work very well. And I certainly am looking at the way that they've created the mood and atmosphere of the game, which I think they've done amazingly well. And that's something that I can only hope that we could approach on that level. But I think that beyond that, we're kind of going in different directions in terms of the game that I think that we're trying to create.
Moving on to the game that you are trying to create, a lot of people, some people know about it, some people don't. Tell us about Grim Dawn a little bit.
Well, Grim Dawn is just it's sort of the dream of the game that I would have loved to have made at Ironlore if I had full creative control. And so now that we have the opportunity to start our own little studio, and and we're only a couple of guys working on the game now, but having inherited the engine and the tools from the Ironlore owners, we're able to get a pretty massive jump start on development, and that's allowed us to get pretty far pretty fast in terms of developing the core gameplay and being able to sort of add in new features and whatnot. but it's basically it's a darker, grittier game, and it has a lot of, I think, because I think one of the things that I enjoyed about Titan Quest was that it had deep gameplay systems, and I was proud of that. But I always felt like the game lacked that sense of peril when you left town. To some extent, the world was so bright and picturesque that sometimes you sort of felt like you were walking through a park, and that the enemies, felt a little bit out of place. And we addressed that a little bit in Immortal Throne, but in Grim Dawn, we really wanted to take it further, where you leave town and it's clear that the world is in chaos, that human beings have been pushed to the brink of extinction. You can bust through houses as you're playing and sort of see the evidence of the people who had lived there in their lives, and encounter atrocities and destruction. And I think it really helps create that environment that feels more at peril. And I think the other big thing would be the combat. Because they were aiming for a E for everyone or T for teen game on Titan Quest, we weren't allowed to have blood or gory hit effects or deaths or anything like that. But that's something that we've been able to, I think, improve a lot on Grim Dawn, which makes the combat feel a lot more satisfying. The hits are a lot more solid and crunchier. There's bloody hit effects, there's interesting death animations, and overall, I think it just feels a faster pace, and it has a lot of the impact that Titan Quest lost.
Now, going back to the what you were saying about making a darker game world or whatever. So what you're telling me is that you have no rainbows or unicorns.
No, there's no rainbows or unicorns. Although somebody did request a unicorn, so we'll see what happens with that. But it's not a desaturated, gloomy world throughout. We also have some places that are a little brighter, and places that use some color and that have a nice sort of natural look. And I think that those give contrast to the darker elements of the game, the darker settings. But yeah, overall, it's a more sort of gritty, realistic look.
I think from my point of view, looking at the early alpha videos that you put out, I think what it really impressed me, how far you seem to have come with the project. It looked really very polished. In fact, I really wanted to actually play it. But how hard has it been for you guys to get to that stage with such a small team?
It's definitely been a challenge, and I'm basically trying to work like two people's jobs every day, in terms of trying to manage the company and communicate with the fans, and keep the external artists supplied with work and whatnot, but then also be doing the sort of in the trenches game design work, building out the level, setting up the equipment, designing the monsters and the skill trees. So it's one of those things where it's like every day I look at the clock and it's like 5 a.m. or the sun starts coming up and birds start chirping, and I think God, there's another day gone, and I have to go to bed and get ready to get back to battle again the next day. But I guess one thing that's helped a lot is the fact that we're starting with pre-existing source code, and so that allowed us to get some core gameplay up and running very quickly. And then also because I've gone through 2 product cycles developing action RPGs, I know what needs to be done. It's not like Titan Quest was the first action RPG I had ever worked on, and when I started doing the design work for that, a lot of it was this process of trying to figure out what goes into an action RPG and how do I design the system mechanics and what makes sense. And now I feel like I can take all of that experience, and I can take all of the feedback that we've gotten from Titan Quest, and it allows us to get things in the game and get the gameplay feeling good much faster. So we're at a point now where we have the core gameplay, we have a bunch of environment sets, we have all of the common equipment done, and a couple of uniques, and we basically just need to get some additional people on to build out the world and do the quests and add more loot.
So you're looking. Do you think that it's realistic then that you could hit a beta test this year? I think you've maybe mentioned that on the Grim Dawn forums. Is that a realistic goal now with the Kickstarter money now in place?
Well, I mean, we're calling it the alpha test because it will. I think we're at a stage where the gameplay is rather advanced, but the content is very limited. So we're hoping that if everything goes really well by the end of the year, we could have first playable out to those people who had bought alpha access keys, and that there'll be a small amount of gameplay, possibly sort of similar in scope to the Diablo 3 beta, and then we'll basically just keep building the game from there. If not the end of the year, maybe early next year. We're thinking that we'd progress to beta by late spring, early summer, and then on to a full release. And because the way that we're doing this, where we're not working with the publisher, it's a project where even full release, I don't think is going to be like a definite end. It's going to be more like we open it up to everybody who's bought a key at this point, but we're going to just hopefully be able to keep working on the game for years to come.
Mm. Well, good luck with that, and I'm looking forward to finding out more as the months progress. And again, congratulations on the Kickstarter. What I want to ask you now is, are you going to be taking next week off to play Diablo 3?
I don't know, man. It's going to be really hard because it's killer timing with the whole Kickstarter project and everything. Our project ends on the 18th, a couple days after the Diablo 3 releases. So
even if I said it's research, you wouldn't take the time off.
I'm certain that I will be playing some of it when it launches, but I may have to hold off till the 19th before I can really put in the hours that I want to.
Okay. Well, thanks a lot for taking time out to talk to us, Arthur, and don't forget to check out Grim Dawn, everybody. Good luck with the project, and we look forward to hearing more about it. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much. Take care.